one. And welcome to the Weekly Coop. I am here with an amazing guest, has a lot of powerful knowledge on just business and mindset and just I really love the masculinity that's going to come through in this episode. So Steven, I should say, sorry. Introduce yourself, what you do, and just a little bit about who you are.
Sure. My name is Steven Kuhn. I'm a U.S. Citizen, but I've lived abroad for about 35 years. Joined the military when I was 19, left Pennsylvania where I was born, went to Germany, spent 7 years there, went to Iraq, did a tour, got out, stayed in Europe, and have since lived in 10 countries, now currently in Turkey. Opened and ran 20 of my own businesses, turned around about 100 businesses, and have funded or generated over 900 million in revenue and in funding to date, and just having a good time. I focus a lot as a coach. Most of my clients that I work with to raise money, I coach them. Most of them are men, and it always comes down inevitably to being a leader at home. Is a little bit different than being a leader at work or in the workplace, but it always comes down to one thing, and that's a conscious decision to be the leader.
That's an amazing intro. Much appreciated. What got you, because you said a lot of great things. I guess the first question is why did you want to leave America?
Well, I was 19 years old. I was in high school. Uh, I grew up with very abusive stepfathers. I think I had
Mm,
four by the time I was 18. I'm talking like thrown down the stairs, gun in my mouth, stuff like that. Like really, typical classic American nightmare. And I just knew I had to get out, or I wasn't going to go anywhere if I was even going to survive. So I joined the military. I was like, I'm out, just get out of here. And I
mm.
wanted to put myself in a position where I had no choice but to adapt. Like I wanted to push myself as hard as possible to see what I was made out of. And man, I found that experience.
Seriously.
Yeah, ended up, boot camp was really tough on me, even though I was a football player. Really, really tough on me. I wasn't a good football player, by the way, because I had no self pride and no self worth and no belief in myself. So I couldn't play well because I didn't know how to break through those barriers of mind over matter. But when I joined the military, I remember I had a 1980s disco mullet, so to say. And I remember when I was sitting in the barber chair at the reception station in Fort Knox, Kentucky, as they were cutting my hair off, I said to myself, that dude is now gone. He'll never show his face again. And I swore to myself I would become the best version of myself. And that's what I did. And I never went back. And I've been working on myself for many, many years, three marriages, four kids in total. And it's a lot of work, but it's so valuable now to the rest of the world that I'm able to pass on the knowledge that I went through. I mean, look, I've lived in 10 countries. I've been married. I've been in a war. I've been shot. I've had 120 fights. It's just ridiculous amount of things that I've done. And I mean, I've worked for celebrities like Mick Jagger, Olivia Newton-John, Andrea Bocelli. I've worked for the European Parliament. Started an organization that's now the fastest growing party in the history of Germany. And the leaders were just invited to the inauguration of Trump. And I mean, it's like these are all things that I've done just sort of by the way. Got my MBA in the UK. It's like I just
Hmm.
did things because I wanted to do them, and I never really thought like, well, let me make this my career. For me, it was about proving myself to myself. You know, and when you come from a childhood like I come from, that's called a chaos kid, and chaos kids are, if you look at any 100 millionaire billionaire, most of them come from chaotic childhoods, and because they're always trying to prove themselves and get attention from the parents, so to say, and it's their inner child kind of coming through,
Right.
they're always doing more than everybody else. They're always pushing harder than everybody else, and that sense of urgency they have to achieve just wipes everybody else off the map.
Man, that's some powerful stuff. I really like where you're coming from. I guess, yeah, one of the questions I think I have just from your upbringing and because I'm a middle child and I think I grew up a little more independent in a way of I wasn't rebellious, but I definitely wanted to kind of people please in a way by being really good at sports and school and stuff like that. You seem to have had, yeah, wanting to kind of you talked about grabbing attention and like those sorts of things, kind of like validation, quote unquote.
Right,
Um,
completely.
but I feel like you took your experiences and you made them strengths. And I guess like what strengths do you think you got from like your childhood and your upbringing that have brought you into business, but also still keeping like a healthy masculine at the same
So,
time? Because you're a very healthy masculine person. So I'm kind of curious on how you handled all that.
well, I would say my number one strength is my vulnerability.
Mm,
I can walk into a boardroom with suits and ties, all these guys sitting there with their PowerPoint presentations and all these big deals, and I will close into $250 million deal in my T-shirt while they're sitting there flipping through their PowerPoint presentations. Why? Because I walk in there as who I am in my true identity. I'm not trying to be somebody. I'm not trying to show something. I'm just who I am authentically as who I am. And I don't give a damn what they think about me because I'm not there to sell them anything. I'm there to show them that I'm the person that they want to work with because I
mm,
have certainty in my abilities to deploy my genius in any given situation. It doesn't matter if I have the solution, if I know somebody who has a solution, or I know somebody who knows somebody who has a solution. That's what they buy. They don't buy that service. They don't buy the product. They don't buy your suit. They don't buy your PowerPoint presentation, your product, your service. They buy their certainty in your abilities to deploy your genius in any given situation. And that
mm,
alone, that certainty in who I am,
yeah.
and since I'm a man, the certainty radiates through my purpose in life and shows that masculinity, shows that I'm an authentic person. And therefore, I can dictate my own market value in whatever I do. No one ever asks me, what grade did you get? What was your grades, your point average when you're an MBA? Let me prove that you've done what you've said. No one's ever asked me that,
Okay.
ever.
Yeah.
Because the certainty that you have carries everything with it
Yeah.
in the moment, in the now. You know, anyone looking at the past to try to figure something out doesn't trust you right now,
Mm,
right? So they're trying to validate what you're saying because you're not saying with certainty. So they got to go to the past to try to figure it out.
yeah.
So if you're certain, they don't look at the past because you're certain. And you know what the amazing thing about certainty is? It allows you to get rid of the how you're going to do anything. Because if you're certain, it doesn't matter how, you just know you will.
Man. Wow.
Yeah,
So what are you most what because you talked about so many businesses, right? If you are allowed to share,
yeah.
what are you most proud of? Like, what business were you most proud of? Like creating, launching,
Sure.
selling, whatever. And what are you excited right now, like with what you're working on?
I think the most impressive business I ever had, or the most proud business I ever had, was my first business. That was a cocktail bar in Berlin, Germany. So an American cocktail bar in Berlin, Germany. 1996, I opened it up,
Okay.
and I ended up opening two more and a nightclub, and they all had the same name, and it was really cool. And I was proud of myself. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no experience. I came out of the military, opened a cocktail bar. Next thing you know, the most popular cocktail bar there in Berlin. And I just went with it, and I knew, like, I was just stand on the bar and sing, and like I was way out, like what just went crazy. I said I'm gonna have as much fun as possible, and that's what attracted people. And that's when I realized, I said, I'm doing things differently, not because I'm trying to market, but because I want to have fun in what I'm doing. I want to enjoy my life, and I want to show people that it's okay. And that was truly my motivation. And when I did that, and I saw how people flew to me, I was like, wow, it really pays. Marketing doesn't mean shit unless you're authentic.
Yeah.
Because somewhere down the road, it's going to, this is just a message. This isn't the truth, right? When you're talking about a person anyway. So it's something to be said for that business. But I would say right now, what I'm working on, we just funded $210 million for 5 different companies within the last 60 days. My partner and I.
Wow.
Yeah, and we have this week 35 million, next week 15 and 10. And these are all companies. I just got off the phone with another one, and we're working with international banks and high net worth individuals and stuff like that. And people are like, "Well, yeah, you have those contacts. That's why you can do that." Dude, I'm a guy who lived in a mobile home in Pennsylvania. Right?
Right.
I came from nothing, and I'm not touting that, but I didn't have any contacts. I didn't know who these people were. But one thing that I always did, and I didn't know I was doing it until I wrote my book, Unleash Your Whole Alpha, and I was sort of, recalculating my life and sort of dissecting what worked and what didn't work. And I noticed that one thing that I always did that always bared massive fruit was I would show up for a person wholly and fully. I had no
Yeah.
preconceived notions, no cookie cutter solutions, and no perceived outcome of a specific solution, or I mean, of a specific outcome, right? I focused on the only thing that I can control, and that's my intention of adding value by solving problems. And
Right.
so I did that my whole life. I always ended up co-creating a solution that I personally never would have come up with on my own, and they wouldn't have come up with on their own. We have a solution that's tailored specific to our two minds. And of course, it's ownership, isn't it? So when you own
Yeah.
that solution and I own that solution, we do it together, and it's much more fruitful and much more successful than it would be otherwise. And so I think that I can look at businesses here, there, and the other, but I think the most important thing that I've done was came up is dissected my life and created a foundation from which I can always launch no matter what happens. So I have an operating system which I know it's built on 5 models, which again are in the book, and those 5 models are how I live. I didn't write the book and learn it. I took my life and
Put
dissected it,
it in.
the book. Yeah.
Hmm.
And so now anyone can take that book. Each chapter is stories and lessons and stories and lessons from that story, and then actual action steps, how you can implement that in life. So that when you're done with the book, you have the 5 models implemented in your life, which makes life much easier. You have an
Right.
operating system from which you can launch the rest of your life and actually stay at that level. It's crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, Two questions I'll get to. The first one I want to start with, though, that you mentioned the amount of money that you work with transaction wise. That's
Yeah.
a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I think when people scale in a business, I remember I was talking with someone recently, and they were like, I don't know if I'm meant to be a millionaire, because like I don't know if I can handle an amount of money at one time. And where I'm over here, like, give me that shit. Like, I want to see that in my bank, and I want to know what the nervous system feels.
Yeah.
Um, because I think people look at dollar amounts and they get scared. Like
Yeah.
they get nervous because they're nervous about losing it. They're nervous about yeah, just like throwing it away in some
Yeah.
regard. How have you been able to take what you've taken and like work with these big deals? And how has your nervous system like gotten used to it?
Um, I think proximity,
Okay.
right? So proximity. So when people see a number, millionaire, they associate it to a picture, right?
Okay.
So situation, a picture that they've seen or they've heard. And if that's not them, then they feel uncomfortable.
Of course.
Well, put yourself in that picture, like
Mm,
literally. Go to that place. Get the apartment, right? Go hang out with those people. I know it sounds cliche, but it's really true. When you live in a place like I live in, like this place right here, like you're looking at, right? When you live in a place like this, you can't feel good, right? And when you're on a Zoom call, when people come visit you, they're like, "Wow, this is a great place." Like, yeah, this is how I want to live. And so when you're at this level, you're automatically thinking differently. Second one is putting yourself in businesses where the numbers are just astronomical. I've never thought of myself as a billionaire, never even considered it. And then recently in December, we were looking at a company to fund, which we ended up funding, which is a couple $100 million company, and they're gonna easily exit for 3 to 4 billion. We have equity in that company. Suddenly, because I was in that proximity, millions looked like nothing,
right.
and billions were like, well, shit, I can be a billionaire. That's not going to be difficult. And then I look at the water plant we have in New Zealand and things like that, and you think like, man, I'm just some dude from Pennsylvania, right? And I'm literally, I would say, effortlessly almost amassing this sort of connections of people, businesses, wealth, and money that without actually, let's say, building a business,
Yeah.
right? I have a business, but that business is connecting people, architecting a deal, and profiting from that,
Hmm.
whether it be upfront fees, growth advisory fees, success fees, or equity. It just when you put yourself in that proximity and you talk to these numbers all the time, then it becomes smaller. And I remember thinking when I had 5K in my bank, I'm like, man, I'm doing good, you know. And you're like, man, I don't want to spend too much. Now, when you got, like a million in your bank or whatever, you're like, man, I need to top it up. You know what I mean? Like, I need to stop. I'm getting low. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's just that grows too. So, and what I've learned is when you hang on to it, what you resist will persist, obviously. So when you hang on to it, when you don't want to invest it and spend it and freely, because money's a conduit. I know I hated when people talk like this, right? But you're a conduit for money and energy, right? And money
Of
is
course.
energy. That's what it is, right? And so when you're hanging on to, oh, I don't want to spend. My wife always tells me, look, I know you're worried about money right now, or you don't want to spend it because of that, but every time I tell you to spend money, more comes. I'm like, okay, what do you want? She'll tell me, and I'll be damned if within a week or two more money comes. It's like every time. And so sometimes it takes a second person that understands, let's say, the energy part or the action part, where they might not understand the financial part or the business part, but they understand that, to work together as a team. And of course, when you have a woman in your life, like my wife, Olga,
Yeah.
who's from Ukraine, who supports you and pushes you and sees in you maybe sometimes what you don't see in yourself, that also, look, the true masculine only can emerge, in my opinion, with the true feminine beside you. And the true
Mm.
feminine can only emerge with the true masculine beside them. I mean, true. And masculine isn't a tattoo, long beard. I'm a tough guy. Let me kick your ass. Like you see every fucking podcaster out there. Excuse my French.
No, you're right.
Every freaking tough guy out there. Like all
Hmm.
these military guys. I'm a military guy. Like you got to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and kill the enemy before they get up before you. That's not masculinity. That's bravado,
Mm.
right? And here's a trick: women, right? A lot of women mistake that bravado for
Yeah.
masculinity. The bad boy,
100%.
the bad boy, the leather
Hmm.
jacket, the motorcycle, the tattoos, all that kind of stuff. And they get into these toxic relationships and call these men toxic masculine, but they're not. They're toxic bravados. They're toxic egos. It has
Mm-hmm.
nothing to do with masculinity. Masculinity is an internal force. It's an internal energy, right? It's not an external energy. It's the yin and the yang with the feminine,
Yep.
right? We have feminine in us, men. Women
Yeah.
have masculine in them too.
Yeah.
So that balance, I would call it more integration than balance, but that integration that we have with the feminine, which is the vulnerable side, the holistic side of who we are, banked together with the masculine, which is the action oriented, find a solution side. When you can find that integration, man, you are unstoppable. But again, that's where humble alpha comes from. Humble on the outside, alpha on the inside, right? That you I call it your nuclear power plant right here, right? That's the masculinity or the femininity. And people feel that I don't have to sit there and say I'm tough, I can kick your ass. I was on a battlefield, I shot people, and I have to kill everybody I see because otherwise I'm not a man. I don't need to say that. You can see that. You can see that in me when I'm talking, that I have zero fear of anything in front of me, zero, or behind me, doesn't matter. But I don't have to say that. You see it in my certainty, in who I am as a person, my identity. If you ask anybody right now, who are you? They're going to say, I'm the CEO. Nope, that's what you do. Oh, I'm a father. Nope, that's what you do, right? I'm a brother. Nope, that's who you are. That's not your identity. What is your identity? Most people can't tell you. And that's a big problem. A lot of people get into, let's say, the military mind. When you get out of the military, your identity, I'm a soldier. It took me years
Yeah.
to get rid of that identity. I still have it in me. It's part of me. It's formed who I am, but it's not who I am.
Yeah.
Knowing your identity is the key factor, and knowing your identity, being certain in who you are, and carrying that certainty forward, and having that certainty in your abilities to deploy your genius in any given situation is the most powerful thing that you can do in your life.
Mm. Man, on fire. Yeah, I 100% agree. I've actually talked about it a lot with false bravado and a lot of these guys that have big platforms and how they present themselves, and they attract the insecure
Yeah,
men.
yeah.
And being a vulnerable man is, I had a shaman once tell me it's not the easiest path to choose, but when you do align with it fully, the amount of people that want to work with you is, I mean, it's 10 times greater.
Here's the trick, though: being vulnerable from a place of power.
Yeah.
Most men are vulnerable from a place of weakness.
Yeah.
They feel like a victim. They talk about their horrible childhood, and that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff. When you come vulnerable from a place of power, a woman, the feminine, will melt at your feet.
Mm. Yeah.
My wife says to me, the most powerful moments of our relationship is when I was most vulnerable.
Hmm.
She tells me when I'm vulnerable and I have tears in my eyes and I'm telling her the truth, but I'm coming at it from a place of strength. She goes, I've never seen a more masculine man than in those moments. And my wife is beautiful and smart and clever, lived in 8 countries, owned multiple businesses, does really, really well. She doesn't need to talk garbage to me, right? She's telling the absolute truth. And that's why we're like this.
Hmm. That's amazing. Like,
Yeah.
what's having a partner in business and your romantic life? How's that?
Uh, you have to define the rules.
Yeah.
You have to define the rules. What do you do and what do I do? She does certain things and I do certain things. She likes to cross over into my world because she wants to learn. And I get that. I don't want to do what she does. so it doesn't bother me. Like, go ahead and do it. Okay, good for you. But we're never apart. For 3 years now, we've never been apart for more than maybe twice for 24 hours when I had to fly somewhere, but that was it. Maybe 48 hours in the last 3 years we've been apart. We've been together the entire time since then. Okay, she'll run errands or whatever, but for an hour. And it's never enough because our minds work in ways in unison where she has an idea and I'll be like, oh, we can take it here, or I'll have an idea, oh, we can take that here, and we're just always on this, moving forward, and
Oh,
our our love life, our passion for each other is like it's like the first day every day. It's like I get up and I look over and I go, oh my God, that's my wife. I can't believe that's my wife. And I'm not even kidding.
that's beautiful.
And I made it a point to myself to, whatever I think of, if I see her walking by and I think, man, she looks great today, I'll tell her. If she's what she's wearing, her shoes or boots, whatever she's wearing, right? Whatever she's looking, whatever. Like sometimes when she's eating, I'm like, I'm just looking at her. She goes, "What are you looking at?" I'm like, "Oh, you're absolutely so beautiful the way you eat." You know, it's so weird, but it's just the way it is. And when you tell the truth like that, because men think of this stuff all the time, but they never say, it. "Oh, I don't want my wife to get a big head," and she thinks she's too sexy, and then other guys will like her and all this stuff. Believe me, every single day we go out this door, there's a guy looking
Yeah.
at my wife. Every
Oh,
single day,
yeah.
right? And they try, they really do. And it takes a man who's 100% secure in himself not to let that bother him.
Yeah,
And
100. Yeah.
and I'm just telling you, it still bothers me sometimes. It's more out of the respect factor because if a man tries to talk to my wife in front of me, that's just disrespect, right?
Yeah,
And my wife hates conflict, so I have to be more negotiable, so to say, in those moments that it typically would be, which also forces
100%.
me into the
Yeah.
internal masculine to show the force instead of being the force. See what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
instead of punch them in the face, you have to exude that force and that power that they go, oh, okay.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Um, I'm sure there are a lot of men looking for
Yeah,
that
there are
connection.
endless. But they don't want
And
to get help. They don't want to show that they need it. They don't want to talk openly about it. They all want it, but no one wants to do anything for it. They want to be the guy with the beard and the tattoos and the tough guy and the bald head and all this kind of shit, whatever they do, right? I'm just so sick of it. I'm so sick of it. I have these guys tell me, yeah, Steve, but you don't understand. I do understand. I had a gun in my mouth, my own once, and then one from a stepfather once. I had a suicide attempt. I ended up in the hospital. I did all that shit. I know what
yeah.
it's like to hate yourself and to not feel like you're worthy. I know what that feels like,
Mm,
you know? And so, yes, I've been there. Everyone's story is different. I'm not saying mine's like everybody else's. Everyone's story is different. But until you're ready to let go of what you think that you have to be and what the world says that you have to be and what your mom and your dad and every other man with a big swinging willy thinks that you have to do, right? You're not ready.
yeah.
If you can't break down and say, who am I, man? Like,
Mhm.
what am I about? Why am I even here? What is this about? If you can't do that, you won't find who you are. I promise you. I worked with plant medicine for 17 years
Mm,
trying to find that out.
yeah.
And the last clicker, I'm not done yet, but the last kicker was my wife. It was the feminine.
Yep.
It was the feminine.
It's always the femme.
And it wasn't what you think. It wasn't like she gave it to me. I had this, when I met her, she was wearing like jeans and a t shirt. And I was like, man, let me show her how to dress, right? So I buy all of, I select and buy all of her clothes. We go shopping together. I select everything that she wears.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I made her into this amazing woman. She was always amazing, but she
Oh,
didn't
of
know
course.
because none of her boyfriends ever told her, or her ex-husband ever told her how beautiful she was, how smart she was, how clever she was. Never told her. Why? Because they were insecure. They didn't want her to
Yep.
get too big because they were worried. And I had to force myself to say, if I tell her how beautiful she is, and I get her dressed the way that I think that should be dressed, everyone's going to look at her. Are you ready for that, Stephen? And I said to myself, hell no, I'm not ready, but I'm going to do it anyway because it scares the shit out of me. So every time that I see something that would be good for her, if it scares me, I go full in. I'm talking full in.
Mm. So
That's what I'm
you
talking
kind of
about.
let fear drive you a little bit,
Yeah.
like
Well,
more
that's what I'm
to it.
talking about because I know that's what's going to make me grow.
It's like a
That's
mental
what's supposed
discomfort.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you're cold plunging, but it's like more like your brain. Like you're more like
Yeah.
doing the discomforting things that your brain or your heart
Yeah.
feel. And you're like, all right, I'm going to do it even more now. You know,
And
that's really cool. It's a cool way
and
to
it's
look at it.
astonishing to me. You know how much I love her when I look at her and she's looking at herself in the mirror after 3 years and she's like, I can't believe this is me. You fucking beautiful that is.
Mm.
That a woman who's in her 30s, late 30s, who never knew that about herself. And
Wow.
it took a man to show her how beautiful and smart and clever she is.
That's amazing.
And that man grew through that
Uh,
massively. So it isn't like you're the man, I'm the woman, you do this, I do that. It's not always like that. Sometimes you have to let
right.
go of what scares the hell out of you. Because think
Uh-huh.
about it. She knows she's powerful, she knows she's clever, she knows she's smart. Every man wants her that walks by, right? She could walk away right now anytime she wanted and
She good.
get all these men. But that's the whole point, isn't it? Right? For
Well,
me.
you're a balanced individual. You attract a balanced individual. Like,
Well,
so
it
she's
was scary
comfortable.
sometimes. It was scary sometimes. It
Yeah.
really is. Yeah, yeah.
Well,
But
that's like you can't just heal everything by yourself. Like especially in business or relationships, like you got to make uncomfortable decisions in business. You got to make a 4 or 5 figure investment if you want to grow your money.
yeah,
You
yeah,
got to buy clothes that you know would make your wife look really good.
yeah,
It's going to make you uncomfortable
yeah,
with other men staring, but you're just going to have to do it because
yeah.
it triggers you and you got to fight through those triggers.
And because it's good for her.
Mm,
And because it's a selfless act for her.
exactly.
You
Love
know
and
how connected she is
sacrifice.
to me? You know how connected she is to me? She said,
Yeah.
"No man has ever made me feel like you make me feel."
Yeah.
And like I massage her almost every night, almost every
Mm,
single night. Like I'm talking like for an hour or two. I'm massage. Like I love, and I hated it before. And I've learned how to do a massage. I took massage,
yeah.
school, right? I hated it, and in my previous marriages, I never did it. But for her, I wanted to do it. Like I want to do it. You
I
know?
think a lot of men and women too, when they're with the right person, they'll do stuff that they're like never done before. There's like they never really cared about or wanted to do like
Yeah.
because it's um it's like a sacrifice of the ego because like you love this person so much. Love
Absolutely,
conquers
man.
ego.
You nailed it there, man.
Thanks,
Sacrificing
man.
ego. I love it. Perfect. That's exactly what it is.
Um,
Exactly what it is. Here,
awesome.
a great photo of my wife and I right there.
Ah, that's so beautiful. All our viewers on YouTube, I hope you're seeing that. That's yeah, we need more of that. And I think what you're doing is so powerful and so it's very strong. I can feel that energy for sure, and it's really cool to witness you. And it's really cool
Thank you.
that you got to share your story today.
Yeah,
And my last question I would say to you before we time out here today, what do you just like parting advice for I think this episode has been geared a lot towards men.
yeah.
Um, this can be maybe universal for women too, but like, what is your last piece of advice to, you've created a life that you wanted to live,
Yeah.
like you have, and you're
Yeah.
doing that. And it's really cool. It's really inspiring for me, and it's going to be inspiring for a lot of people. How, like, what is just that last piece of advice you want to give to someone to create the life that they want to live, that they're just they're not doing it.
I don't want to sound cliche, so I want to say something for real, and that's basically you can never be happy with what you have. You can be fulfilled, you can be thankful, but you can't be happy. Like, oh, I'm here, I made it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like you can be fulfilled, you can be grateful, you can be thankful, and all that kind of stuff. And I am
Hmm.
very, but I'm never happy
Hmm.
because I know the potential that we have as humans, we have as men, we have as women. It's endless and it's boundless, and it's just you'll never get to the end of it. So I want to get as far as possible before my days on this earth are over,
Yeah.
and I want to see what I'm made out of. And I pray every night, and I say to God, show me the best version of myself. Show me the best version. And what's that mean? It means He's going to put me in a position where I have to show that. He's not just going to give it to me, right? He's going to put me in a position where I have to adapt to make that
Yeah.
happen. And since I've been doing that for probably the last 6 or 8 months, the world has changed for me
Yeah, for sure.
completely.
That's amazing. Thank you, Stephen. Your book, Amazon
Amazon and Audible.
and Audible. Okay.
Yep.
I'm so it's the Unleash Your Humble Alpha. That's the
Yeah.
title, right?
Yeah.
Unleash Your Humble Alpha. It's on Amazon and Audible. I'll drop the link in my show notes for you guys. Take a read of this book. Also, ways to find you.
Yeah. Well, best is email Steven at humblealpha.com, or on, let's say Instagram is probably the easiest one, Steven Eugene Kuhn. You'll find me there. Facebook as well. I don't use it that much. And, like I said, we help companies grow and scale, but I'm also a coach. And I help most of my clients end up being coaching clients, who own companies or entrepreneurs. And I'm pretty rough when it comes to coaching, because I want you to get to the point where you never thought you could get. I'm not here to, babysit and sort of help you, make a couple dollars and feel better about yourself.
Yeah.
This is about breaking through into your truth, man. And it's something that too few do. They have this standard, rubric of things that you need to do. And oh, now you're a man. No, bullshit. Let's go far, far beyond that.
Yeah. Cool. All right, man. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so
All
much
right,
for
brother.
your grace and your knowledge and insight on healthy masculinity. This was probably one of my favorite conversations I've ever had on here,
Uh,
just because I've been preaching healthy masculinity on the internet for a very long time,
yeah,
and it's just cool to see a guy like you with all your success preach the same thing. It's very inspiring, and I think a lot of men are going to see this and feel a lot of impact. So thank you
I'm humbled. I'm
so
humbled.
much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Much
Appreciate
love
it.
to you. Have a
Appreciate it,
great
brother.
rest of your day, sir.
You
Thank
too,
you.
brother.
All
Bye.
right, and cut. All right, man.
Yeah. Cool.
Perfect. I'm gonna get that edited, everything squared away in, I'm gonna try to do like 2 weeks. Usually it doesn't take me super long, but kind of kind of in the thick of it with some hypnotherapy sessions and stuff like that. So it's all good stuff. So putting time into to edit this